Well, each Wednesday at this time, we talk with someone who's been able to get a business up and running from the ground up. An entrepreneur, which apparently the French don't have a word for, according to George W. Bush. Tonight we have Olivia Maragna, the founder and managing director of Aspire Retire Financial Services. Olivia was also the 2008 Telstra Queensland Young Businesswoman of the Year, and was also an integral part of Aspire Retire winning the 2009 Small Business Award for Queensland. In a nutshell, her business is one which offers financial services with a focus on retirement. Olivia Maragna, welcome.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
Financial services with a focus on retirement. The first word that comes to mind is superannuation. What is the business?
Superannuation is certainly a part of it. We focus pretty much on strategies for those who have, say, up to around about 10 to 15 years to retirement, or they could be as close as sort of 1 to 2 years away from retirement. So, including those in retirement. So certainly superannuation is a big part of our business, and certainly self-managed super funds, make up a huge part of the advice that we actually give to those looking at retirement. Along with investing and minimising tax is another big focus of ours as well.
Okay. So how complex is the business of advising people on retirement and finances? Because I'd imagine by this stage of life, there's a little bit of emotion in all of this as well.
There certainly is. It can be very challenging at times. And I think certainly with the changes in legislation, and we're in for another big wave of legislation changes over the next sort of few months, up to about 12 months' time, those sort of changes in legislation certainly keep us in a job, and they certainly keep us extremely busy.
Are you suggesting to me that governments like to change the laws on superannuation? I've never heard such a thing.
Just a little bit. I think it's several times a day the legislation changes in our industry, so it's certainly very challenging at times.
Just a thought, how many questions did you get when earlier this year in the budget Wayne Swan said that the retirement age was going up to 67? I'd imagine your phones were ringing hot.
A little bit. I think the what usually comes out in the budget sometimes is very vague, and there are some very tight sort of rules or some very quirky little rules behind a lot of what does come out in the budget. So there certainly is a lot that actually did come out in the budget that wasn't sort of expressed on the night, and we're certainly seeing a wave of that legislation coming through at the moment.
Let's go back to sort of your pre-business days. What were you like at school? I mean, were you the studious type, or was you basically did school so that you could survive through to the weekend?
Yeah, I certainly don't think I was the studious type. I was more the person out in the sports field and running around and doing quite a lot of sport.
What sports did you do?
Oh, I used to do everything. So I think I managed to get age champion at school from, I think, about grade 1 all the way through to grade 7 in primary school.
This is for running or?
Everything.
No?
So
sure, okay. So hang on,
shot put, high jump, running.
Okay, so track and field. Were you a netballer or a basketballer?
I was not a netballer.
Right.
Softball, I used
to
love.
Softball you played, okay.
Yep, touch football, I used to love as well.
Swimming?
Swimming, I was hopeless at swimming.
There we go.
Absolutely hopeless.
Very few people are good at both athletics and swimming, aren't they?
I was a farm girl, so we didn't really learn how to swim too much. So
where did you grow up?
I grew up in around about the Maryborough sort of Gympie area, so a little town called Owen-Yella. And our nearest school was about 20 minutes away, so I certainly grew up amongst the sticks and the farm and worked on the farm quite a lot. Pretty much 24/7 besides the time that I was at school.
So did you go through year 12?
I did, yeah. Sure. Finished at grade 12, and then my mum put me in a car and sent me to university down in Brisbane. So that was my first sort of introduction to Brisbane.
So far, I'm not seeing a lot of sort of high finance in your background so far. I mean, did you even bother to study like business principles or accounting when you were at school?
Certainly. I think my favourite subject was maths. So even though I was the sporting type, I certainly was a mathematician. We were very lucky on the farm to have a roadside stall. So I think probably at the age of 6, I was on the stall actually serving customers and actually counting money. So
what did you sell?
Pineapples.
Okay.
So we have mainly a pineapple farm, which is our family farm. So yeah, from a very, very young age, I was serving customers and counting money, and I think I sort of knew that going forward after school that my way was into accounting or something to do with figures and dollars, because that's what I was used to from a very young age.
Now, just for those of you who are trying to work out, exactly who I'm talking to here, we have a confession to make. Apparently, Olivia is not, I repeat, not 28 years old. She is. Would you like to? I'm not going to ask you your age because a gentleman never does that. I'm merely going to get you to reveal it.
Okay. I actually was 28.
There you are. That's right.
That's some truth in the matter, but I'm no longer 28, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm a little bit older than that.
Oh dear. Being a lady, not revealing the age, but it's somewhere between 28 and 3 million. So I'll just pick a number in between there. So you went to university in Brisbane. What did you study?
I studied accounting, so based on my upbringing on the farm and serving customers on the roadside stall.
What was it that attracted you to accounting? It's a very sort of certain profession, I would have thought. You've said you had a love for mathematics, and it's not exploratory. It's not sort of research-based. It seems to be very exact.
Yep, definitely. I did physics and chemistry at school as well. So, like I said, as much I was the sports person, I was also very much focused on anything to do with analysis and maths as well. And that's certainly where that interest came from.
Did you work while you were studying?
I did. I started off on my first job after the farm at McDonald's. I lasted for 3 months and I was absolutely hopeless at it. Absolutely hopeless. So I apologise.
You couldn't stand the pickles, or what was
I couldn't stand the milkshakes. There was something just wrong with the milkshakes. But
just quietly, what's in those milkshakes?
You don't want to know.
Okay, right. Just thought I'd ask her.
So that was certainly my first job, and I certainly studied for the first couple of years, and then decided if I really want to get ahead in life, I need to find some part-time work. So I think in the economy at that time, it was really about you needed experience to get a job.
So we're talking sort of early to mid-90s here.
Yep,
okay.
Definitely. So it was, part of the economy was really, we weren't the only people going for jobs. I was one of, 250 people applying for a part-time job. So I knew pretty much from then that I needed the experience to actually get a job. And I was very fortunate that in my last few years of high school that I actually did the books for the farm, and certainly working with our own accountant back then, he saw that I actually had a good interest in it.
Okay. So after that, did you have to try a few jobs before you eventually decided, hang on, I want to have my own business here? I'm just wondering what experience you had of working under other people.
Yep, definitely. I started off in an accounting practice and moved my way up, I guess, in the accounting industry. So I actually ended up working in an international accounting firm. From there, I really saw accounting as looking sort of backwards. A lot of people actually came to us and it was more, well, this is the consequences of what you've actually done. Financial planning is certainly looking the other way. It's looking really forward and saying, well, I know what you've done in the past, but what we're really focused on is what's actually going to happen in the future. So that's when my focus changed from more accounting into that financial planning sort of industry. So from there I actually went into financial planning at that firm and then progressed from there. So
did you find even before you moved that your mindset had changed, that like someone had come to see you and you'd be able to say, oh well, actually what you need to do from here is X, Y and Z?
Yeah, definitely. I found it a little bit frustrating in that you could see particular things that clients were doing, but there wasn't that capacity to be able to sort of say, well, we need to plan forward, not backwards, or there needs to be something more that you should be doing that you're not currently doing right now. So that's certainly where the interest came with that forward looking and with the financial planning.
Did you receive any specific mentoring? Obviously you had a developing passion for financial planning and trying to get people out of problems before they got into them, as it were. Did you have people who could show you how to do that?
I think certainly my mum and dad have certainly been a big inspiration in even looking at what they've done. They've had a family business pretty much all of their life as well. So even from a business perspective, what you need to be doing in the business to stay ahead as well. So certainly they were a good influence on me, but also particular people who I actually worked with, were a good guidance as to where I needed to go as well.
This is ABC Local Radio Queensland. My name is Daniel Viles. I'm sitting in for Steve Austin. And my guest is Olivia Maragna, who is the founder and managing director of Aspire Retire Financial Services and was last year's Queensland Young Businesswoman of the Year. Olivia, we're getting to the point now where I suspect you decided you had to branch out and say, no, I'm sick of working for other people. I need to be my own boss. And How did you make that step? I mean, was it something where you maybe had a few goes at it, or was it scary, for instance?
It was definitely scary. I think it's probably one of the biggest decisions I've made in my life. It really came from, I was actually in the financial planning industry when September 11 happened. And when that happened, I actually watched what was happening in the practice that I was working at. And I learnt very much what not to do in a crisis. And it really sort of made me step back and think, well, this isn't the way that the client should be.
So what sort of things were people doing in response to those attacks?
Look, I just think from a client service point of view, I felt that the clients weren't being looked after. So I think, and we've certainly seen, I guess, in the last sort of 12 to 18 months where when things are good, things are good. And when things are bad, the good sort of, advisors will actually be proactive and get on the phone and talk to their clients and educate them and make sure everything's okay. What I saw back in September 11 was really the opposite for some advisors that I was actually working with, and that was they weren't actually picking up the phone and they were being more reactive and sort of, hiding in holes because they hadn't really had that experience previously, in a downturn. So that was, I think,
I suppose you wouldn't have either, though, because I'm thinking the previous crash was, it wasn't a crash in 2001, but 1987, which is when you were still in primary school, if I'm right.
Now you're giving my age away.
Same age as me. I'll give mine away later, and you can work it out from there. But no, I mean, how do you think you knew what to do in that situation, or what was your instinct telling you?
I think my instinct, and certainly having that accounting background, is that you do what's best for your clients. And what I really saw during that period is that a lot of clients weren't being treated the way that they should have been. So it was really sort of a crisis point where I sort of sat back and went, well, hold on, this is something that I think I can do better, and I can actually develop my own business and be able to provide advice and good client service regardless of whether the times are good or bad. And that was really a defying moment for me as well.
So what sort of things did you have to get together? I mean, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking, well, you got to think of a business name, you've got to find premises to work out of, you've got to find clients, let people know you're around. I mean, how did you tackle all of that?
It required a lot of planning and a lot of hard work. At the time that I actually started the business, there were a couple of industry surveys that were out that were really quite punishing on the industry. So there was a big focus on the commission-based way that advisors do charge, and there was a real focus on, are advisors out there really providing advice that's really in the client's best interest, or are they doing it to line their own pockets? So those surveys were really integral to the way that we established the business and really put in focus the way that we wanted to service our clients. So it was a lot of research into those surveys to see, well, what was it that was actually happening? And we wanted to be completely different. So we basically did the opposite. So where those surveys absolutely canned, commissions, we decided to go for a fee-for-service model. So, it wasn't aligned to particular investment products. Where most people are licensed under a big bank or a big institution, we decided to focus on trying to get our own license. So,
did that make it harder not having, because I guess while it does compromise, I can see how it would compromise the advice that you give, it does give a bit of security to your business to sort of have those big banks behind you. So,
I think sometimes and sometimes not. I think the focus for, I certainly worked for big corporations all throughout my life, and that's why I think starting my own business was a huge step. I think I was a little bit brainwashed in it. It's the big corporation that actually brings the clients to the table, and what I really learnt was that it's actually the person and the service that you provide that actually brings the clients to the table in that regard. So I think that was probably one of our biggest steps, was going, our client's actually going to follow us because, we're now this sort of, little business now that's providing advice. So it was certainly a very humbling experience, because what we found is all of our clients actually followed us. So, that was an absolute shock. I think my feelings initially were, is this going to work? And all I can do is give it a good try. And like I said, it was a huge change of focus, mental-wise, because I had only worked for big corporations all my life. So to have that experience, I really sort of went, well, maybe it is the person and maybe it is the good advice and maybe it is being very personalised to each client that actually works well. So our philosophy has always been do what's best for your client and add value to their situation, and hopefully in return, if we look after our clients, they'll look after us by talking to their friends. So our business has really grown purely by word of mouth over the last 6.5 years, and it's grown extremely well. So,
which of course cuts down your advertising budget as well.
It does. That's about zero at the moment. So, it works extremely well, but definitely a huge mind shift to actually start.
Just getting back to the not charging commissions, and the parallel that I thought of there was in the real estate industry. We've got people like Neil Genman who, and to me, am I right in saying it's a bit of an ethical thing with you as well, that it's not just, well, this is our philosophy because we think it's good business, but there's almost something in the heart with wanting to do business that way.
Definitely. I think it's fairer. That's the way I see it. I think that definitely on the commission basis, the more you actually have, the more you actually pay in fees. Now, are you actually getting more service from your advisor if you do have more? So to us, it had to be a fair sort of system, and that's certainly the way that we operate our business, is that, clients effectively choose their service levels and pay the fees accordingly, as opposed to, well, if you've got more money, you pay more fees. And that's certainly been a huge shake-up in our industry over the years, and it's back in the spotlight again, even as recently as last week. So it's certainly an area where the government is focused on, and they really want to get away from even people calling themselves financial planners or financial advisors when they're actually not qualified. So it's an interesting industry to be in, that's for sure.
So charlatans everywhere. This is a segment where we get entrepreneurs on and we ask them how they got their business up and what things they learned along the way. Can you think of a mistake that you made along the way that you really learned from and that influenced how you do your business now?
I can definitely think of many of those.
Pick your favourites.
Pick my favourite. I think probably the biggest thing that I've learnt in business is that you're in business and you need to bring on staff, and you really need to bring them on sooner than you actually think. So I think certainly one of the biggest mistakes we made in business was that we actually waited a little bit too late to actually take on staff. So my rule of thumb generally now when I talk to other businesses and mentor other businesses is that if you're at sort of 80% yourself, you need to start thinking about bringing someone on. So the first time I took on a staff, I think I was at about 160% capacity and I couldn't find enough hours in the day. So that's one of the things that I've definitely learned, is that you don't wait until you're over 100%. You've got to wait for the time to be at, say, 80 or 85%, so that actually still gives you time to actually train your staff as well.
Yours is a business that offers financial planning with a view towards retirement. You're slightly older than 28.
Slightly.
My lips are sealed. Have you started planning your retirement? Are you somebody who thinks that far ahead?
To sort of sound like a bit of a nerd, I actually started at 18. I was very
Sorry,
lucky.
I asked.
So that was quite a few years ago now, but I was very lucky at that age to actually have someone close to me that I was actually interested in shares. And I remember him saying to me, look, you've just got to save some money from whatever you're doing and actually just put a little bit aside. So, I started at a very young age just putting $100 into a managed fund. And then as I actually got my pay rises, I actually just upped that by, $200 a month and then $300 a month. So I was very lucky to start quite early, and then got my first property at 23. So, I certainly started young, and that's certainly something that I like to focus on for our younger clients, is that you can't sort of wait until you're 40 or 50 to actually start to plan. If you really want to start to have that lifestyle a lot earlier, you do need to plan a lot sooner as well.
You're someone who works in the money industry. How do you learn not to love the money?
I think just don't get emotional. I generally, regardless of what it is that you actually, if you're looking at wealth accumulating, don't look at, well, is this house nice and pretty or whatever it is. To me, it's all about the figures. And if it's a sound investment and it's got, whatever it is about it that actually makes sense, is really what you need to focus on. So I can certainly see people getting very emotional about it. And I do talk to clients about having separate accounts for their big expenses and having what I call the shoes and booze account. So you can certainly blow the shoes and booze account all the time, but you certainly...
That's for women, isn't it?
That is for women. That is definitely for women, the shoes and the handbags. But yeah, look, there's certainly a lot of emotion when it does come to money. I try not to be so emotional about it.
Just finally, last year, Queensland, Young Businesswoman of the Year. Now, I know the right thing to say is, there were lots of people, who deserve this award, etc., etc. But just the emotion of the night. I mean, you're there. You're nominated. You've probably had a look at what the other women nominated with you have done, and then your name gets read out.
Yeah.
What's going through the mind at that point?
Well, I think the tears started rolling pretty much straight away. So I was very lucky. I actually invited a table of what I would call some of my best clients that have supported me and mentors that have supported me throughout my business life. You are?
Sure.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely. So I took a table of wonderful women. I think I had 2 men on the table.
Nice.
But certainly women that have really inspired me over the last sort of 6 to 10 years. And some of my most special clients that actually support me a lot in business as well. So I certainly wasn't expecting it. I think there was 3,500 nominees last year, which was quite incredible. So, and I looked at the finalists on the day and sort of thought, I've got absolutely no chance whatsoever. Why have I brought a table of people to be completely disappointed? So, look, it was a very humbling experience, and I think the tears pretty much started rolling as soon as they announced my name, and they didn't stop during the speech either. So it was a fantastic experience.
Well, I'm a year late, but congratulations.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
And wonderful to meet you, Olivia. Thanks for coming in tonight.
Wonderful. Thanks, Daniel.
Olivia Maragna, last year's